housery and a few more little tiny details. That's pretty much what it came down to. I mean, if there was a match that really encompassed everything that South American football was about, it had to be Argentina and Colombia. It was one of those where emotions were high and a lot of things truly came out of the deepest and most emotional parts. Some good intentions, some out of some of the darkest places in the collective psyche of many players. But it showed a lot of the trash talking and the verbal aspect and the psychological aspect. None better than when Dibu Martinez ends up in penalties. And in this episode, I'll kind of go back and forth to give a bit more perspective on what goes on between Brazil and Argentina. Is it's pretty much the dream matchup for this Copa America. There's a lot of things that Argentina did well, but man, do they need to improve a lot if they have a chance or at least want to play against Brazil. The Brazil side now, as I promised, I'm going to jump around. Brazil side that didn't impress, hasn't impressed. And it just seems that in very few moments when they decide to, put the foot on the accelerator. It's been a team that has been playing not even in first gear or in second gear. It's just that they've been in neutral and they've been fortunate that they've been going downhill. We've never seen the true Brazil. Is there such a thing as the true Brazil, or as of right now? Who knows? That's even a better question. Because when you've been coasting, when you've been cruising, when you've been half-assing, when you've been, I mean, I say half-assing in a good sense. I'm not saying that they've played in a haphazard manner. They haven't impressed. I guess that's where you start to see the whole aspect of me saying that, but I don't mean it with a bad intent. I mean it with the intent of them not playing to their full potential. It's been disappointing. It's been disappointing. What's most important, though, if you look at it from that perspective, though, is that on several occasions they've been up against the ropes. And they've been able to, and I'll use, Muhammad Ali term, they've been able to rope-a-dope their way out of, sticky situations. They've been able to survive with a draw. They've been able to win 1-0. They've been able to come back against Colombia. They've been able to grind out a 1-0 result against Chile and then again against Peru. Have they had help? That's another story. That's another, conversation we can have post-tournament. But that, of course, that is a thing that is worrying many in this tournament. That is going to be worrying many in this tournament, of course. What can you say? I really don't. I really can't say much about Brazil. Save that the amount of matches that they've been able to win, that the amount of matches that they've come out unscathed, could come into an end. Could come to an end on Saturday. It could. Is it possible? Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility, yeah. Is it probable? We'll talk about that in just a second. Brazil hasn't impressed. Peru will play Colombia for the third place, but I was really impressed with Peru, as it seemed like they were dead in the water in World Cup qualifying play. They are able to come back. They suffer a big blow against Brazil in the opener and lose big. But they were able to come back. And it seems like with this Gareca side, they've been able to come back time and time and time and time again. And that's what's been able to help them out. What ends up helping Brazil is that they're able to do just enough. You have a Neymar that's truly become the leader of this side. As in times when he's been needed, he's been able to dribble out, break out, and create some interesting opportunities for his team. And that, again, is part of the important aspect of what they've been able to do, or what he's been able to do. Same thing with Messi, too. Messi has been able to do that as well. And that's why they end up being the two best players of this tournament so far. At times, it hasn't been because of goal scoring. It's because of what they've been able to do to handle certain situations in the game and be able to really cause a lot of problems to defenses. But for the most part, Brazil shows a lot of doubts. Brazil shows a lot of deficiencies. Brazil isn't the sharpest team that we've been accustomed. Yeah, but they've been so on top of the game in South America that we start to think that, yeah, they're unbeatable. And they have been. If you look at official matches, I'm talking about official matches alone, yeah, Chicha's only lost once. That was back in 2018. They haven't lost a Copa America game since 2016, that match against Peru. They have not lost in Brazil since 1949 in Copa America. Now, all those types of streaks eventually do come to an end. Will it come to an end in terms of a loss? Maybe not. Maybe they draw and they go into penalties. That's what ends up happening. And that's what ends up being part of this whole story. And of course, you can say on social media, of course, there was a great explanation. I put a tweet up, and I got to give thanks to Christina Uncle, the famous FIFA referee. That she's been able to explain the logic behind that, and I think she did a great job of why that handball by Thiago Silva didn't get called. I think she did a great job, and I have to give her all the credit in the world for it. But that wasn't the reason why Peru didn't advance. There were certain things that Peru didn't do at times. Peru should have done a little bit more. Maybe you should have gone for it a little bit more. Maybe you should have taken a bit more of a risk. And we see that. And we see that could have been the case. And it wasn't. And unfortunately, they end up losing. Now, Colombia against Argentina. And again, like I said, Messi, Neymar, Messi, if you say one's the better player over the other, I really have no argument. I really wouldn't have a problem. And I think your case would be just as legit one way compared to the other. The two best teams, the two most consistent teams have been able to face off, and they've done a great job in doing so. Now, there's certain things in this. Now, with Argentina, there's certain things. They take the lead. If they're able to take the lead first, what they've been able to do and what they have done, and maybe it's something that I'm not a big fan of with Lionel Scaloni, is that they take the lead and all of a sudden they drop back. Is it a lack of energy? Is it a lack of fitness? Is it a lack of health? You don't know. Maybe. And I think that's where we end up confusing ourselves. That's where we end up having a lot of problems in terms of what's gone on in this tournament for Argentina. It's been the modus operandi of Argentina in this entire tournament. That is what we're looking at. That is what we're facing. That is what most likely will end up happening. And if they do it against the Brazil side, Brazil can come back on you. Now, Brazil can also leave some holes in defensively, and that can cause some problems for them as well. Because if Argentina can break on you properly, especially if Di Maria is playing. Now, I have to see Di Maria in a final, and that's usually something I get a little bit, weary of, because he tends to break down. That's going to be one of the question marks. That's going to be one of the demons, one of the ghosts of the past that Argentina is going to have to deal with. But for them, it's going to be a great situation as they come in as the overwhelming underdog compared to their previous four finals. Well, maybe 2007 you could say that they were also the underdog as well, but maybe not as much as it is in this particular case. Gonzalo Montiel, I don't see him up to snuff for the national team. he was part. I'm not going to say he was the reason, but he had a lot to do. Petzela as well. Hope that Cuti Romero is able to come back for Argentina in the final. He was out due to an injury, but he should be back, or at least they're hoping he can be back by Saturday. Petzela leaves much to be desired. Montiel, when he came on for Molina, leaves a lot to be desired. Tagliafico did all right. Now, it's the middle that at times you end up having the question marks over. And again, it's when Argentina drops back and they start cruising and they lose that edge that they start out with after they score the goal. That's the big problem. Instead of looking for that second goal, instead of looking to kill off the match or to really put their opposition in a very compromising position, they just wait. That's a big problem. And as competition gets stiffer, Argentina needs to understand that. Lionel Scaloni needs to understand that. But there's a lot of good things. First and foremost, Argentina have a goalkeeper. They have a goalkeeper. They have a bona fide goalkeeper in Emiliano Martinez. It's been phenomenal. I mean, there was a lot of doubts coming in about him. He doesn't have experience. He's never played for the national team. He hasn't done this. He hasn't done that. Comes in, impresses, takes over Franco Armani's spot. And it doesn't look like Franco Armani is going to be the starter, barring any type of injury that occurs from here on out, because Emiliano Martinez took over. And I'm extremely happy to see the former Arsenal goalkeeper do well. He's had a sensational campaign over at Villa. And you know what? I'm happy for him. You know, his story's great. Seeing this team, just they look excited about what is always up ahead. And that's always an interesting story to look at when it comes to them. And that will be something to look at not just now, but going into World Cup qualifying, going into the World Cup, if and when Argentina do qualify. And the more that they solidify themselves throughout each and every match that they play, the more of an interesting prospect they become in terms of what they can do during the World Cup. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win. I'm just saying that they're an interesting team to follow. And that enthusiasm seems contagious from player number 1 to player number 28 to player number 23 on this roster. And I think that's what makes this team such an interesting team to look at, such an interesting team that's grown into being a team. You know, despite Papu Gomez not playing, he ends up being fulfilling a role. Messi's fulfilled his role. I mean, so much so that on Argentine television, just minutes after the game's over, they're comparing his ankle, which is a bloodied, after the challenge from Frank Fabra. You have his ankle being compared to Maradona's back in 1990. It finally seems like he's come of age at 33, now 34. And it's interesting to see that relationship and how now Messi is deemed as the undisputed captain, as the player that, he'll show up. But if he doesn't, he also knows that X, Y, and Z can also occur. And he knows that. And now we have to see how results end up developing later on in the future. That conversation, that discussion can end up taking a different turn. So let's be wary when we start talking about Messi, because that's always a very sensitive topic at times. But again, Emiliano Martinez, Messi, Lautaro Martinez, you have to give him a lot of credit, man. He's now the bona fide number 9 for Argentina. I don't see anyone taking that position away from him. Scored when he's had to, scored in this tournament, has been a major contributor to this side ever since he's been able to come on. So I don't see him losing that spot either. So you start to see some names really becoming etched within the starting 11 for the next year and a half, 2, maybe 4, maybe post-Messi. You start to see a team that ends up kind of reestablishing itself, but the foundations are already there. So you just have to start making adjustments here and there on what type of players to come in. But of course, let's talk more about the present. That this final ends up being one where Messi doesn't have the pressure to win it. Yeah, it'd be nice if he did. But it doesn't seem like he will. It might be that he doesn't. But at the end of the day, he ends up being that player that he's going to enjoy it. It seems like he's actually enjoying being with the national team when it was usually the inverse. The oasis for him was to be at Barcelona. Now, of course, that's been inverted 180. Him going to the national team is kind of a getaway from Barcelona and the problems that they've had over the past few seasons. And that's what makes this particular moment so special for him, especially heading into to the twilight years of his career. So it'll be interesting to look at that. It'll be interesting to look at Brazil and the obligations that they have too. How are they going to be able to rectify all the things that they haven't done well? How are they going to increase the tempo? I mean, it's difficult, and it goes again what I was saying about Argentina after they score a goal with Brazil throughout the entire tournament. It's very difficult to just, switch on that intensity if it hasn't been there at times. But when you have defensive discipline, as Argentina and Brazil do have, they're going to be I would not be surprised if it ends up being a scoreless draw after 90 minutes. I would not be the least bit surprised. Because you have two teams that defensively are well, it's going to probably come down to individual or some type of association type of play that ends up making a difference. And I think that's where these two teams will end up breaking one another down. It would be wonderful to see this final because it's just what everyone's been looking forward to. I surely am. I'm surely looking forward and captivated by the storylines that are developing now in the next few days. But for sure, we are in for what promises to be a very compelling final. A very compelling final. I repeat it one more time. A very compelling final in one of the meccas of football. And can Messi, for a second time in a final at Maracanã, finally lift a trophy? That'll be interesting to watch. That'll be interesting to see if it happens. Because Neymar's done it already. Neymar's done it already at Maracanã, not once, but twice. On the Confederations Cup. As much as important as you want to give it, that's fine. But also won that always elusive gold medal for Brazil in Rio at the Maracanã 5 years ago. So, can it happen? Football's a funny sport. Man, anything can possibly happen.